step into the world of the past through the secret lives of history's most captivating leaders. From the corridors of power to the quirks of their personal lives. From the unexpected to the extraordinary, these stories bring history to life, reminding us that behind every great leader lies a tale worth telling. So, grab a seat and prepare to be swept away by the captivating saga of past world leaders like you've never seen them before. Subscribe for more interesting content. Abraham Lincoln. He was the only president to have obtained a patent for an invention. His patent was for a device to lift boats over shoals and obstructions in a river, but it was never manufactured. Lincoln is the tallest president in U.S. history, standing at 6 feet 4 inches, 193 centimeters tall. Before becoming president, Lincoln was a self-taught lawyer and served in the Illinois state legislature. He is known for delivering the Gettysburg Address, one of the most famous speeches in American history. Lincoln was an avid reader and loved Shakespeare's works. He often recited passages from memory. Despite being known as Honest Abe, Lincoln was once a successful wrestler in his youth, only losing 1 out of about 300 matches. Lincoln was the first president to be assassinated, shot by John Wilkes Booth at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. in 1865. He was posthumously inducted into the Wrestling Hall of Fame in 1992. Lincoln's famous stovepipe hat was more than just a fashion statement. He used it to store papers and documents. He suffered from depression throughout his life and referred to it as his melancholy. Lincoln's face is carved on Mount Rushmore alongside George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Theodore Roosevelt. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, declaring all slaves in Confederate-held territory to be free. Lincoln's assassination on April 14, 1865, occurred just days after the Confederate surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, effectively ending the American Civil War. His famous nickname, Honest Abe, originated from his reputation for honesty and integrity as a young store clerk. Lincoln's presidency was marked by the Civil War, which he navigated with a strong commitment to preserving the Union. Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was born on the island of Corsica, which was later annexed by France. He rose to prominence during the French Revolution and eventually became Emperor of France. Napoleon's military campaigns, known as the Napoleonic Wars, reshaped Europe and had a lasting impact on global politics. He was known for his strategic genius on the battlefield and innovative military tactics. Napoleon's height is often debated, with historical records suggesting he was around 5 feet 6 inches, 168 centimeters tall, which was average for the time. He was exiled twice, first to the island of Elba and later to the remote island of St. Helena, where he died. Napoleon implemented several reforms in France, including the Napoleonic Code, which influenced legal systems around the world. He crowned himself Emperor of the French in 1804, a move that symbolized his break from the revolutionary ideals of equality. Napoleon's invasion of Russia in 1812 ended disastrously, resulting in the loss of the majority of his troops. He was a prolific writer and wrote numerous letters, speeches, and memoirs during his lifetime. Napoleon's final defeat came at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, where he was defeated by a coalition of European powers. Despite his military prowess, Napoleon was also a patron of the arts and sciences, supporting institutions such as the Louvre Museum. He married Josephine de Beauharnais in 1796, but later divorced her to marry Marie-Louise of Austria in 1810. Napoleon's legacy is complex, with supporters viewing him as a visionary leader and detractors condemning him for his autocratic rule and militaristic ambitions. He's buried at Les Invalides in Paris, France, in a tomb designed to reflect his grandeur and military achievements. Winston Churchill. He was born into an aristocratic family and had a privileged upbringing. He served in the British Army and as a war correspondent before entering politics. Churchill is best known for his leadership as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom during World War II. He was an accomplished orator and delivered some of the most iconic speeches in British history, including his "We Shall Fight on the Beaches" address. Churchill was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1953 for his historical writings and speeches. He was known for his wit and humor, often delivering memorable one-liners and clever retorts. Churchill was an avid painter and completed over 500 artworks during his lifetime. He was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom twice, from 1940 to 1945, and again from 1951 to 1955. Churchill was instrumental in forming the Allied coalition against Nazi Germany during World War II. He coined the term Iron Curtain to describe the division between Western Europe and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Churchill was a prolific writer and authored several books, including his 6-volume history of World War II. He was known for his love of cigars and alcohol, often enjoying both in excess. Churchill was also a keen bricklayer and constructed several walls and buildings at his country estate, Chartwell. He was known for his bulldog-like determination and refusal to surrender in the face of adversity. Churchill's leadership during World War II earned him widespread admiration and cemented his place as one of the greatest statesmen of the 20th century. Cleopatra VII was the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt, which was founded by Ptolemy Soter, one of Alexander the Great's generals. She was of Greek descent, being a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years. Cleopatra was highly educated and spoke multiple languages, including Greek, Egyptian, and Latin. She is often depicted as a seductress in popular culture, but Cleopatra was also a shrewd politician and diplomat. Cleopatra's most famous relationships were with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, both of whom were powerful Roman leaders. She had 4 children, including a son with Julius Caesar named Caesarion. Cleopatra played a key role in the power struggles of the Roman Republic, aligning herself with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony against their rival, Octavian, later Augustus. She was known for her beauty and charm, which she used to great effect in her political dealings. Cleopatra's death is the subject of much speculation and myth. According to popular belief, she died from the bite of an asp, a venomous snake, in 30 BCE. She was the first Ptolemaic ruler to learn the Egyptian language and embrace Egyptian culture and traditions. Cleopatra's reign was marked by internal strife and external threats, including conflicts with the Roman Republic and rival claimants to the Egyptian throne. She was a patron of the arts and sciences, supporting scholars, poets, and architects during her reign. Cleopatra's death marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the beginning of Egypt's incorporation into the Roman Empire. Despite her defeat, Cleopatra's legacy as one of history's most famous and enigmatic figures endures to this day. She was renowned for her intellect and political acumen, which allowed her to maintain her grip on power in a tumultuous era. Mao Zedong. Mao was born into a peasant family in Hunan Province, China, and received a basic education before becoming involved in revolutionary activities. He became a founding member of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, in 1921 and rose to prominence as the leader of the Red Army during the Chinese Civil War. Mao's leadership during the Long March, a strategic retreat by the Red Army to evade encirclement by the nationalist forces, solidified his position within the CCP. He became chairman of the People's Republic of China in 1949, following the communist victory in the Chinese Civil War. Mao's policies, including the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, had profound and often devastating consequences for China. The Great Leap Forward, launched in 1958, aimed to rapidly industrialize China's economy and transform it into a socialist society. However, it resulted in widespread famine and millions of deaths. The Cultural Revolution, launched in 1966, aimed to purge the country of bourgeois elements and promote Maoist ideology. It led to widespread chaos, violence, and the persecution of millions of people. Mao's cult of personality reached its peak during the Cultural Revolution, with his image and quotations being prominently displayed across China. He is credited with unifying China and establishing the People's Republic of China as a major world power. Mao's political philosophy, known as Maoism, emphasized revolutionary struggle and mass mobilization. Despite his controversial legacy, Mao remains a revered figure in Chinese history, with his portrait still prominently displayed in Tiananmen Square. Mao's rule saw significant social and economic transformation in China, including land reforms and the expansion of education and healthcare. He died in 1976, but his influence continues to shape Chinese politics and society to this day. Mao's embalmed body is on display in a mausoleum in Beijing's Tiananmen Square, where it is visited by millions of people each year. His legacy remains highly controversial, with some praising his role in modernizing China and others condemning his authoritarian rule and human rights abuses. Mao's writings, including his Little Red Book, continue to be studied and quoted by Chinese leaders and Communist Party members. Queen Victoria. She became queen at the age of 18 following the death of her uncle, King William IV, in 1837. She married her cousin, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in 1840. Their marriage was one of genuine affection and partnership. Victoria and Albert had 9 children, and their descendants married into royal families across Europe, earning Victoria the nickname the Grandmother of Europe. She was the first known carrier of hemophilia in the royal family, a hereditary condition that affected several of her descendants, including her great-grandson, Tsarevich Alexei of Russia. Victoria's reign saw the expansion of the British Empire to its greatest extent, with territories across Asia, Africa, and the Americas coming under British control. She became known as the Grandmother of Europe due to the marriages of her children and grandchildren into various European royal families. Victoria's reign also witnessed significant social and technological changes, including the Industrial Revolution and the rise of the British middle class. She was deeply affected by the death of her husband, Prince Albert, in 1861 and entered a period of mourning that lasted for the rest of her life. Victoria's reign lasted for over 63 years, making her the longest reigning monarch in British history until Queen Elizabeth II surpassed her in 2015. She was known for her strict adherence to protocol and etiquette, earning her the nickname the Widow of Windsor. Victoria's Golden and Diamond Jubilees celebrated 50 and 60 years of her reign, respectively, and were marked by public celebrations across the British Empire. Despite her long reign, Victoria never visited many parts of her vast empire, including India. She was the last British monarch of the House of Hanover, with her death marking the end of the Victorian era and the beginning of the Edwardian era. Victoria's legacy as a symbol of British imperial power and Victorian values continues to be debated by historians and scholars. She was succeeded by her son, King Edward II, upon her death in 1901. Adolf Hitler. He was born in Austria and later became a German citizen. He served as a soldier in World War I and was awarded the Iron Cross for bravery, although some historians question the circumstances surrounding his award. Hitler rose to power in Germany in the 1930s, leading the Nazi Party to electoral victory and eventually becoming chancellor in 1933. He implemented a series of discriminatory laws targeting Jews, homosexuals, Roma, and other minority groups, culminating in the Holocaust, in which millions of people were systematically murdered. Hitler's aggressive foreign policy led to the outbreak of World War II in 1939 as Germany invaded Poland. He was a skilled orator and used propaganda effectively to promote Nazi ideology and gain popular support. Hitler's leadership style was authoritarian and centralized, with him exerting absolute control over the Nazi Party and the German state. He ordered the construction of massive public works projects, such as the Autobahn and the Volkswagen Beetle, to stimulate the German economy and create jobs. Hitler's regime was characterized by censorship, repression, and the suppression of political dissent. He was responsible for the deaths of millions of people during World War II, both on the battlefield and through policies of extermination and genocide. Hitler's military strategy, particularly his decision to invade the Soviet Union, has been criticized by historians as strategically flawed and ultimately contributed to Germany's defeat. He was known for his eccentric personal habits, including his strict vegetarian diet and teetotalism. Hitler's death in 1945 marked the end of World War II in Europe and the collapse of Nazi Germany. His regime left a lasting impact on German society and culture, as well as on the world at large. Hitler's legacy remains deeply controversial, with debates continuing over his motivations, ideology, and the lessons to be learned from his reign of terror. He committed suicide in his bunker in Berlin on April 30, 1945, as Soviet forces closed in on the city. Mahatma Gandhi. He was born in British-ruled India and studied law in London before returning to India to practice law. He became involved in the Indian independence movement and advocated for non-violent resistance as a means of achieving political and social change. Gandhi's philosophy of non-violence, or ahimsa, was inspired by Hinduism and Jainism and became the cornerstone of his activism. He led several campaigns of civil disobedience against British colonial rule, including the Salt March and the Quit India movement. Gandhi was imprisoned multiple times for his political activities but remained committed to his principles of nonviolence and tolerance. He promoted communal harmony and religious tolerance, working to bridge the divide between Hindus and Muslims in India. Gandhi's advocacy for social justice extended to issues such as untouchability, poverty, and women's rights. He lived a simple and ascetic lifestyle, eschewing material possessions and dedicating himself to serving others. Gandhi's assassination in 1948 shocked the world and led to widespread mourning in India and beyond. He is often referred to as the father of the nation in India for his role in leading the country to independence. Gandhi's teachings continue to inspire movements for social justice and civil rights around the world. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 5 times but never received the award during his lifetime. Gandhi's legacy is celebrated annually on October 2nd, his birthday, which is observed as the International Day of Nonviolence. His philosophy of nonviolence has influenced many leaders and activists, including Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela. Gandhi's approach to political activism and social change remains relevant in the 21st century, as movements for peace and justice continue to draw inspiration from his example. Joseph Stalin. He was born in Georgia, then part of the Russian Empire, and joined the Bolshevik Party in 1903. He rose to power within the Communist Party after the death of Vladimir Lenin in 1924, outmaneuvering his rivals to become the undisputed leader of the Soviet Union. Stalin implemented a series of 5-year plans to industrialize the Soviet economy and transform it into a modern industrial state. His policies of collectivization and forced agricultural reform led to widespread famine and the deaths of millions of people. Stalin's rule was characterized by political repression, purges, and the establishment of a totalitarian state. He orchestrated the Great Purge of the 1930s, during which millions of perceived political enemies were arrested, imprisoned, or executed. Stalin's cult of personality was cultivated through propaganda and censorship, with his image and ideology permeating all aspects of Soviet society. He was known for his paranoia and distrust of even his closest associates, leading to frequent purges and executions within the Communist Party. Stalin's leadership during World War II played a crucial role in the defeat of Nazi Germany, but his actions also resulted in immense human suffering and loss of life. He played a key role in the post-war division of Europe and the onset of the Cold War, establishing Soviet dominance over Eastern Europe through puppet regimes and military occupation. Stalin's death in 1953 marked the end of an era in Soviet history and triggered a power struggle within the Communist Party. His legacy remains highly controversial, with debates continuing over his role in shaping the Soviet Union and his responsibility for the atrocities committed during his rule. Stalin's name and image were gradually removed from public spaces in the Soviet Union following his death, as his successors sought to distance themselves from his regime. Despite his brutal rule, Stalin is still remembered by some Russians as a strong and decisive leader who transformed the Soviet Union into a global superpower. His reign left a lasting impact on Soviet society and politics, shaping the course of history in the 20th century and beyond. Alexander the Great. He was born in 356 BCE in Pella, the capital of the Kingdom of Macedon, to King Philip II and Queen Olympias. He became King of Macedon at the age of 20, following the assassination of his father, Philip II. Alexander's military campaigns, known as the Macedonian Conquest, expanded the Macedonian Empire to become the largest empire in the ancient world. He was tutored by the philosopher Aristotle, who instilled in him a love for learning and culture. Alexander's conquest took him across Asia Minor, Egypt, Persia, and into the Indian subcontinent, where he founded numerous cities, including Alexandria in Egypt. He was known for his tactical brilliance on the battlefield, often employing innovative strategies to defeat larger and more heavily armed opponents. Alexander's empire stretched from Greece in the west to India in the east, encompassing a vast array of cultures, languages, and peoples. He's often depicted with a distinctive hairstyle known as the lion's mane, characterized by long, curly locks of hair. Alexander's military campaigns were driven by a desire for glory, ambition, and a belief in his own divine destiny. He died in 323 BCE in Babylon at the age of 32 under mysterious circumstances. The exact cause of his death remains a subject of debate among historians. Alexander's death marked the end of an era in ancient history and led to the fragmentation of his empire into smaller kingdoms ruled by his generals, known as the Diadochi. He's remembered as one of history's greatest military leaders and conquerors, leaving behind a legacy that continues to fascinate and inspire to this day. Alexander's empire facilitated the spread of Greek culture and ideas throughout the ancient world, a phenomenon known as Hellenization. He's often referred to as Alexander the Great due to his unparalleled military achievements and lasting impact on history. Alexander's legacy has been immortalized in numerous works of art, literature, and film, cementing his status as a legendary figure in world history. Nelson Mandela. He was born in 1918 in the village of Mvezo in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. He became involved in the anti-apartheid movement as a young man and joined the African National Congress, ANC, in the 1940s. Mandela was arrested and imprisoned multiple times for his political activities, including his involvement in the ANC's armed resistance campaign. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964 for his role in the sabotage campaign against the apartheid regime. Mandela spent 27 years in prison, the majority of which were served on Robben Island, a notorious prison off the coast of Cape Town. Despite his imprisonment, Mandela remained a symbol of resistance and defiance against apartheid, inspiring millions of people around the world. Mandela was released from prison in 1990, following intense international pressure and negotiations with the apartheid government. He played a central role in negotiations to end apartheid and transition South Africa to democracy, leading to the country's first multiracial elections in 1994. Mandela was elected president of South Africa in 1994, becoming the country's first black head of state. He presided over a period of reconciliation and nation-building, promoting forgiveness and unity in the wake of decades of racial oppression and conflict. Mandela's presidency was marked by efforts to address the legacy of apartheid, including the establishment of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He stepped down as president in 1999 after serving one term in office, but remained active in public life as an advocate for social justice and human rights. Mandela was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993 for his efforts to dismantle apartheid and promote racial harmony in South Africa. He is affectionately known by his clan name Madiba and is often referred to as the father of the nation in South Africa. Mandela's legacy as a champion of peace, reconciliation, and equality continues to inspire people around the world, earning him a place among the most revered figures of the 20th century. Margaret Thatcher. He was born in Grantham, Lincolnshire in 1925 and studied chemistry at Oxford University before entering politics. She became leader of the Conservative Party in 1975, becoming the first woman to lead a major political party in the United Kingdom. Thatcher was elected Prime Minister in 1979, making her the first woman to hold the office in British history. She implemented a series of conservative economic policies known as Thatcherism, which emphasized free market principles, privatization, and deregulation. Thatcher's leadership style was characterized by her strong convictions, decisiveness, and willingness to confront opposition. She pursued a confrontational approach to trade unions, leading to several high-profile conflicts, including the miners' strike of 1984 to 85. Thatcher's government implemented controversial policies such as the sale of council housing, the deregulation of the financial sector, and the reduction of state welfare programs. She played a key role in shaping British foreign policy during the Cold War, forming a close alliance with US President Ronald Reagan and supporting NATO's missile deployment in Europe. Thatcher's uncompromising stance on issues such as the Falklands War and the European Union earned her both praise and criticism. She won 3 consecutive general elections, becoming the longest-serving British Prime Minister of the 20th century. Thatcher's leadership style earned her the nickname the Iron Lady, a moniker that reflected her steely resolve and uncompromising demeanor. She resigned as Prime Minister in 1990 after a leadership challenge within her own party, ending her 11-year tenure in office. Thatcher's legacy remains highly controversial, with supporters crediting her with revitalizing the British economy and restoring national pride, while critics blame her for exacerbating social inequality and weakening public services. She was made a life peer in the House of Lords after her retirement from politics, becoming Baroness Thatcher of Kesteven. Thatcher's death in 2013 prompted tributes from around the world, with many praising her as a transformative figure in British and global politics.